Hey everybody, welcome to Converge. I am Ben Robbins. I'm a product manager here at Citrix, and I spend a lot of my time working on the workspace experience, and in particular, the workspace experience becoming extensible, which is just a way of saying taking the components of the workspace platform, being able to port those over to other major third-party platforms such as Microsoft Teams, or even platforms that our customers build themselves. It also means being able to take those same capabilities and bringing them into Workspace from other platforms. So it's a real easy way to make a lot of our customers and their employees become more productive. And on that note, today we will talk about how microapps are a key component of that entire strategy. I'll start with a real quick story though. It's a story I hear from a lot of our customers over and over again. I'll talk to them and they'll tell me, Ben, we already have a lot of services. What we are really looking for is a way that makes our employees start to feel productive with the services we already have. Each time we adopt a new service, our employees get more and more frustrated. They feel like it's just adding noise to the mix, not really actually becoming a solution. And really what we need is a way to simplify our end users getting access to services that they have so that they can become productive and start to get the gains that we anticipated when we bought these services in the first place. On top of that, they're telling me the more time that they start spending in these external platforms to do their jobs or host meetings or whatever the case may be, the less familiar they're becoming with other places like the internet. And people are having a hard time finding the things that were actually very easy for them to find 1, 2, or 3 years ago. So we'll talk about that some, how Citrix Workspace is going to really address that problem with a major focus on trying to make sure that Workspace is solving real problems for real people. So it all starts with Reshaping Workspace. When we begin with this new iteration of Workspace, we included microapps inside of Workspace with an intelligent feed and a few other components because we really wanted people to be productive. But as we started on this journey of figuring out how can we increase productivity instead of increasing noise, we identified that not every person needs the same things to be productive. What you'll find is some people, to do their job, they might want a series of approval applications or a series of small micro apps that they can access very easily and quickly, or sometimes not even their favorite apps. Sometimes it's apps that they have a hard time to find, and they might really want to use a homepage as a dashboard to pin those things so that they don't have to spend time looking for them. Other people might want an employee comms solution pinned to their page, so they're always up to date on company news or trainings, things of that nature. So since our end users want to work differently, we decided to make it a possibility for the homepage inside of Workspace to be customizable so that end users can configure it the way that they want so that they have a little less noise and can actually start to feel a little bit more productive. So what this means is now we can take the existing homepage inside of Workspace, which previously was just assigned with a few apps, a few access to recent files, and the intelligent feed. And end users can add and remove widgets which house these capabilities, and then assign them to whatever they need by building out microapps that have access to, as I mentioned earlier, employee comms, potentially files and apps, or even some other services that we'll see and hear about in a little bit. So this allows our end users to make something that's really special for them and is a way that they want to work. So we started with end users and we thought to ourselves, is there a way that we can do this just a little bit better? So we decided that we can really solve a lot of problems for a lot of people if we enable admins to build problems that are tailored to their organization. So just a moment ago, we were talking about pages that were tailored to the individual, but you also realize that admins might have some knowledge about their own organization and might be able to solve some problems at a major scale. So what we did is we took that same composable page framework that we talked about just a few moments ago, and we rebuilt it so that admins can now configure and build out and deploy use case-based pages to their employees. So I'm going to go over a few that we hear mentioned time and time again, but the net is if an admin sees a series of problems within their organization and they know of a few things that can help solve that problem, an admin can ultimately build a page themselves that solves for a variety of use cases. So two that come up all the time are IT self-service. We see this when we talk to some of our customers who have been on storefront or who have been legacy Citrix customers. They all have abilities to have their own IT self-service page available for their end users. And when they go in the workspace, they want to make sure that they can have something similar. Also, for new customers who have always been part of the cloud, they don't have this capability. But again, as their end users are starting to move and use and adopt more cloud services, they need to have the degree of IT support to help enable those services, fix something if something goes wrong, be alerted of outages. So admins have been very keen on developing these IT self-service pages that give employee news, apps to unlock accounts, order new equipment, reset the password, or monitor ticket status all in one place. So now if a user knows that they have an IT-based issue, they can go to one consistent place to get access to it all the time. And it really reduces a bunch of the cognitive overload that people see when they're switching back and forth between applications. Same thing with an intranet. Intranets are there to be used. They're valuable things, sometimes providing communication, sometimes providing access to apps or other forms of company news. But people don't always feel like logging into the intranet when they're trying to do their work in a central place. So we also made sure that we are building out the right types of widgets that will enable our IT admins and the customers that we support to build these intranet-like type pages within Workspace so they can still continue to reach their customers with fewer levels of difficulty. Another example that comes into play is a line of business productivity page. So no longer just talking about the admin, but also line of business managers who are able to create pages for their teams. So here you can see that a sales team has created apps that are related to sales travel, whether it be submitting expenses, getting request applications, or sales IQ access. Also, they're able to see information about their quota tracking right there front and center, access to a calendar of events regarding their upcoming sales visits that they need to do, and of course, the ability to track their ongoing RFEs, the tracked account value, as well as some of the latest sales trainings that are available to them right on that page. So a sales manager can be confident in knowing that their team is always going to have the information they need at one click away and can spend the rest of the time focusing on connecting to customers and educating those customers about products and the value that their organization can provide. It's a similar story with the frontline worker, people who are typically remote and sometimes have a tendency to feel disconnected from their organization. So a frontline manager can use the same framework, put some of the similar applications in, but maybe just tweak the page to focus on providing access to field notes, a little less of an emphasis on the calendar, and maybe a little bit more emphasis on talking about community events and other topics inside the organization so those frontline workers can continue to feel engaged. And another one that we see is new hire onboarding, right? The ability to roll out a single onboarding page to make sure that your new hires have a great experience on day one, and that they can get access to all the tools they need without having to poke the shoulder on the person beside them and say, hey, where do I find this? Where can I get access to this? Meaning they can request all the apps they need using microapps there at the top, request new services, read the company handbook, navigate the org chart, so on and so forth. And of course, they can walk through and execute all of their trainings and all of their onboarding and orientation events right there from a central page. So those first day jitters don't have to be so unsettling. New hires can come on and start feeling a little bit more confident and a little bit more sure of how they can help an organization as they start moving through the processes pretty seamlessly. So that's a little bit about what we did inside of Teams and the evolution and the story of how we start solving more real problems for real people. And just as we thought to ourselves, not everybody works the same way when we evolve the homepage, or sometimes organizations might need a specific page to help them out. We also recognize that not everybody wants to work in the same place. So some organizations may want their end users to start their day from Workspace. Perhaps they're a virtualization customer and they're going to launch virtual apps. So Workspace makes a common place for them to start right from the very beginning. Or They could potentially be a customer who's not virtualization based. Maybe they have many other needs or a knowledge worker, and they're constantly in teams collaborating and working with other people. So that's where we decided to start meeting users where they are. To give you an example of why this is so important, Microsoft Teams today has 250 million active users, which means that's a lot of eyes within a lot of organizations who we can reach with these real use cases. So here you can see, centered inside Microsoft Teams, we have nestled these use case-based pages that we were mentioning before. So today, if I'm a user, I'm speaking with somebody, we're ending a meeting, and someone makes an offhanded comment about, hey, I need to remember to reset my password. And that reminds me that I need to as well. I no longer have to write IT and try to remember how to do it or navigate and poke around the internet for a bit. I can go right to the IT-based page here in Microsoft Teams, get access to it where I am, do a few clicks, reset or change my password, and then move back on to the work that I was doing when I remembered in the first place that I needed to reset my password. So these are the sort of things we're making sure that end users, while they're working, they don't have to context switch as much. They don't have to feel like they're navigating across services, which, as you remember from early in this presentation, is a thing that admins are seeing time and time again that are frustrating their end users. So we're making sure not only are we building these pages that are able to cluster and aggregate a lot of the tools that end users have, but we're also making sure that we're bringing them to where people are working so that those end users no longer have to context switch and have that added level of frustration. And here you can see really quickly an example of those line of business pages and those new hire onboarding pages still right inside of Workspace. To talk about those for a little bit, why I place those here, if I'm a sales rep and I'm on the road and I'm starting and stopping meetings in Teams constantly, whether it be to reconnect with internal product teams or engineering or customer service teams to get updates on account statuses or how we're going to fix problems for customers, or whether it's meetings with the customers themselves, I'm going to spend a lot of time in Teams. And for me to be able to get updates and be able to submit my expense report right there through Teams or check on my RFP status in the platform that I'm using all the time makes a lot of sense for me as a Salesforce leader. So that's part of the reason that I wanted to focus on our ability to take these line of business pages and place them where people are. It's a similar story actually around new hire onboarding. You might remember a moment ago, I used an example of tapping someone on the shoulder to ask them, hey, how can I find this? Or to inquire about help on where to locate certain services. That's no longer the same reality today as it was before, because a lot of companies, not only do they have their existing employees remote, but they're now hiring fully remote employees or employees who are going to be hybrid. So even if you're a new hire going into an office, you may not have a bunch of coworkers there who you can poke and ask and get help from. Or if you're a newly remote employee, you're going to be fully disconnected and you're going to have to only rely on the services that you have in front of you to get access to the tools you need. So since Microsoft Teams is going to be a major player for any employee who's remote, we're making sure that we're also bringing these onboarding type pages into Microsoft Teams so that these users can get access to all of those tools and again, feel confident and assure themselves while they're onboarding, since they're no longer going to have that inner office communication or ability to reach out to get access to these other tools that they need. So these are a few ways that we think they're going to really help connect and how we think these use cases, as I mentioned, are going to be even more powerful inside of Teams to help end users where they are, in addition to being available inside of Workspace. Now, as I mentioned earlier, microapps is a key part to this entire framework and this entire solution. So as we're looking here at these pages, again, we've looked at several use case pages. They all have a very familiar layout. Well, that's because they all rely on different types of microapps. At the top bar here, you're seeing a cluster of individually launched microapps that will take you to a small micro blade or a full-scale blade inside of Teams to allow you to do a few quick actions. On the right-hand side, what you're seeing in both of these examples are sort of more miniature blades that give you a little bit of context and ability to do a little bit of input for when you just need to consume information quickly or need to do one or two quick actions. So again, taking the core microapps themselves and also just taking the blade technology a little bit and surfacing it one level forward so that users can engage. And of course, now we're also expanding it to even deeper integrations to make sure that we can support a variety of widgets coming from services such as Salesforce or from Outlook that give you and provide your calendar, and bring those front and center into your page as well, again, powered by the microapp framework. And what is great about this is it's incredibly consistent, as we've mentioned. You can edit a page as an admin. You can go through a series of different types of microapp categories and then build your layout as you need it and play with this. You can figure out which types of services are best engaged through the mini blade layout or major content layout or large scrollable lists, and continue to reorganize your page as you get feedback from your end users. So not only are we bringing these capabilities directly to end users in a way that solves real problems for them, also taking these solutions and putting them where the end user is actively working, but we're taking it a step further and making sure that admins do have this degree of control, line of business leaders as well, and making sure that they can actually take the pages, get the feedback from their teams, and build pages so they're better, more engaging, and easier to use, which ultimately is what admins have been asking for a long time, and is the core of the problem of that first story that I shared with you about the frustrations they're seeing inside their organization. So again, this is just one more example, taking the layout that we saw before, putting it visually in front of you, and talking about how we can take miniature blades, core microapps themselves, and a content layout, and continue to build pages that serve our customers. So I hope you've enjoyed this. This is all a lot of our roadmap for workspace extensibility. It's a great part of our vision, and we look forward to bringing these sort of features out to the market in 2022. Again, I'm Ben Robbins. Thank you so much for joining me in my presentation. And if you have any questions, please do feel free to reach out. Take care.